done away with for budgetary reasons. Now, there are good budgetary reasons for this, but the POA chief has denounced the move as making the city much less safe. Where do you come down on that?
While I do support fiscal responsibility, I feel that fiscal responsibility does not have to be on the backs of our law enforcement, particularly the gang prevention units. Yes, there are many other areas, and it's always tough, but particularly when it deals with public safety, I'm a strong advocate of public safety. And not only...
So is there any public safety unit you would support cutting? What about horseback riders?
I would not support any kind of cuts to public safety. I would never put our public safety at risk.
50% of the budget is public safety. Do you mean to make the budget? You don't have an opponent here, so you're going to get it from me. 50% of the budget is public safety. How can you balance the budget if you're not going to look at public safety?
If we look back, and I'd like to answer this question by going back a little bit. During those years when we had our opportunity to really fix the budget, back in 2006 when the market, the real estate market was great, we really need to look at and tap into the assets that the city owned. For example, the Hayes Mansion, for example, or the assets that were not producing, the non-producing assets that could have produced a lot in terms of revenue to patch and to really fix our budget deficit at that time, at least quite a bit. But coming down to this point, it seems, as always, when the problem gets to be historic high and when people panic, then it seems like people try to do the good things, like especially the current leadership, trying to show that she's taking part in balancing the budget, but in reality, it's putting on the backs of city employees and residents. And to answer your question, it's unfortunate that at this point, that we have to come to this point where, due to irresponsibilities of our leadership in prior years, we're now coming to the point of really hardballs. And it's unfortunate. And I just like to say that without, without my putting my heart in really going against public safety, there are certain things that we have to do, particularly in the pensions. That we need to, and that is why I'm supporting W for that reason. And I think it's time to really, put a reasonable ground to this in terms of the pension. I'm not going against, having reasonable pensions and incentives for our law enforcement, but I think we need to really, because of the fiscal responsibility, need to really make this harsh decision at this point in time.
The police department has gotten some bad publicity over the last couple of years for drunken public arrests, use of force, etc. We're now looking for a new police chief. What are the sort of, let's assume you have somebody qualified in terms of background and everything else. What are the first 2 or 3 questions you want to ask that police chief?
Well, number one, I think the experience and the background of the chief. I believe that we need to ask how much of the law enforcement experience, and that's the key. And number 2 is also, aside from the experience of practicing in the law enforcement arena, we also need to consider the connection and the open-mindedness of the new chief to various ethnic groups and their culture. I believe that San Jose, being such a diverse city, we need to have a chief who really understands various culture and really put it into their practice of understanding various cultures so that we don't have situations like Daniel Pham, who recently was shot in his own backyard, where where Big Cow in 2005, was shot to death because she was holding a potato knife, potato peeler. So things like that. If there had been an understanding, a more understanding of the culture, I think many of the incidents such as that could have been prevented. So the touch and the understanding of the culture is also very important. But also, in addition, I think being business friendly is also very important, because particularly in the downtown area, when we have a lot of our nightlife, clubs may be, many of our businesses downtown, and we really need to support them. We need to have a chief who really understands business and really be pro-business, and really providing the means and really facilitate, make it easier on businesses for them to grow. Let's not prevent them. So those are the criteria I think would also be very important to a chief.
Thank you. Let's ask for some questions in the audience here. Min does not have an opponent here, so we're letting him off a little bit easy, I think.
Actually.